I was diagnosed with ADHD at 41 years old. So if you're wondering if that affects my content creation process and my personal branding journey, it sure does. So if you're watching this video, you're either somebody who has ADHD, you think you have it, and you're trying to figure out a way to create content that works for you. Stick around. We're going to talk about how you can actually make ADHD work for you and not let it be debilitating and take you down. Because yes, this time around, we are going to be able to do it. Let's start out with this late in life diagnosis and how the heck I wasn't diagnosed any sooner. Okay, so you may know that ADHD, the diagnosis in women is different than the diagnosis in men. And so I have always been one with jobs where the ADHD was a blessing and not a curse. And what I mean by that is that I had a desk job out of college, and I had that desk job for a year and 9 months. And then after that, I really didn't go back to being in front of a computer or sitting at a desk until COVID. After college, I got that desk job as a buyer for Macy's. It didn't work. If you're somebody with ADHD, then you know that a job that bores you to death, and I mean, I would fall asleep at my cubicle. I would fall asleep at meetings. And I thought I was going to get a job, or I thought buying was going to be the same job that Anne Hathaway's character in Devil Wears Prada
Andrea Sachs? Yes?
had, where I would be going to like fashion shows and in with the fashion crowd in New York. Come to find out that I was doing a lot of spreadsheets and trying to figure out sales formulas. I did not last at that desk job very long. And after the desk job is when I started my makeup career. I got into makeup in 2009, and Instagram wasn't really popping off just yet. But in 2012 is when I started building my personal brand. I mean, that's not even what we were calling it in 2012, right? It was back in the days when there was no algorithm. It was just chronological feed, and it was mostly your friends following you. And so my following grew pretty easily and organically because I started working with celebrities and singers.
She had a makeup artist in town.
And I was in that part of the entertainment and fashion industry where if people saw you doing somebody who was famous, they would follow you. It was easy to grow your following back then. And so having jobs like makeup and bartending and aesthetics where you're standing and you're in action all day long, it was easy, and content creation wasn't a necessity back then. Building a personal brand just meant building your reputation as whatever it was that you were. The ADHD was really serving me back then. I didn't think to get diagnosed because everyone around me was the same way. We were just off the wall and rambunctious on set, and it worked out for us. We were playing. We got to be creative, and no one ever had to sit still because, in fact, I was meant to be powdering the model, powdering the actress, the singer, whoever it was that I was working with, making sure their hair was still in the right place, making sure their lipstick wasn't wearing off. Like, there was so much to be paying attention to that job really, really suited me. And I would never have thought that I had ADHD because my ability to hyperfixate was used well in that profession. So lots of positives were going on. Moving on to 2017, when I started transitioning from being a full-time makeup artist to starting a coaching business. So my makeup career started in 2009. The personal branding journey started in 2012. And then in 2017, I decided I wanted to build an online course. This was early for the online course boom. So I hired a coach to teach me how to build an online course. The online course was on teaching makeup artists how to go from working at the counter or being in bridal makeup to working in fashion or working on television or things of that nature. I wanted to just teach makeup artists how to make that rebrand in their career while simultaneously I was trying to make a rebrand of myself in my own career. I was actively doing sessions with my coach and building this online course for makeup artists, and at the same time, keeping up with my content creation for my makeup artistry personal brand, because by 2017, it was almost expected that people would be posting to their Instagram accounts while we were working. This is 3 years before the pandemic. I had no idea what was coming. No one had any idea what was coming. The ADHD wasn't really rearing its ugly head yet. The hyperfixation on this new interest that I had in building the online course was really serving me. Being on set matched my energy, everything that I was doing to build my career. It just felt like I was in sync with the path that I had chosen, especially after having quit my corporate job. It felt really good to be in a profession that really suited me. So the rebrand was successful, and I was able to, I had mentioned this in another video before, I was able to go from building my makeup artistry personal brand where people knew me as a makeup artist through my content or through working with me on set. My reputation was really good in that part of the industry. So starting to build my reputation as a coach, at first I thought I was going to be coaching makeup artists. That was 2017 to about 2019. And then in 2019, I made the switch to do life coaching instead. This started me off on a content creation journey that was different. I started slowing down with my makeup jobs because I started getting more and more life coaching clients. Then comes 2020, when the shit hit the fan for everybody, especially makeup artists, right? Because we weren't allowed to be putting makeup on people's faces. We had to be 6 feet away from each other. It was like I had made the transition into my coaching career at the perfect time. I decided to really double down on the way that I was posting online. So instead of it just being Instagram, I started posting on Facebook and getting involved with communities of coaches. And I met my former business partner in one of these groups. So on top of the content creation, the programs that I was creating for clients, I was also starting to do a Facebook Live series with my former business partner. We eventually turned it into a podcast. It was just this really intense moment in my career where the social media and personal branding content creation part really took over. I did not realize, I don't know how, I guess because I had never super burned out as a makeup artist, but I was headed straight for burnout, especially because we weren't allowed to go anywhere during COVID. I would be at my computer in my office all of the time. It felt like my life revolved around social media. It felt like my life revolved around building a personal brand and building my coaching business. I really believe that's when I started feeling the ADHD symptoms. I didn't really look into how ADHD affected people differently, women especially differently, before even 2020. I was starting to go through these cycles of depression where I would be laid out on my couch in my office or in bed for days. This would last for weeks and months. I didn't know what to attribute it to because I just thought, since I had had a history of bouts of depression throughout my life, starting in high school, I just thought maybe I have depression and I need to take care of the depression. I didn't really think about, oh, okay, this makes sense as ADHD burnout, or this makes sense as my body having a response to all of these changes that I had been making, trying to fit into the mold of what I needed to be doing as a content creator, as a coach with a new business, as somebody who was building her personal brand. And it was really just back to sitting at my computer for a lot of the day or trying to post content, create content, and stick to some sort of routine that many people were, giving advice about at that time. It was like my 45-minute 55-step morning routine, which I could never do. I don't really have that built-in ability to follow a routine like that. Even my morning routine now, it's always different every single day. Even though I've always been an early riser ever since I was little, it doesn't matter what time I go to sleep at night. I will wake up between 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning. Come to 2024 when I get my diagnosis and I meet with a psychiatrist and she prescribes me medication. And I thought, well, I've been trying to figure this out for 4 years, and I have gone through enough burnout cycles with my business, with content creation, with personal brand building that I'm like, okay, if I could just get myself to focus, get organized, do the things that I need to do to make sure I am still growing and not stagnating, then I think I will feel better. That was my thought process of getting a diagnosis. It was actually one of my friends who had told me that she had gotten her diagnosis like 2 years ago. And it inspired me because we're in the same age range. I'm not too late to get a diagnosis. My psychiatrist ended up putting me on Concerta medication. At first, the medication worked really well. I was able to sit down and focus. I was able to do my job. I was able to do content creation. Around the month and a half mark, I started realizing that the ADHD medication or something was making me extremely tired. The type of medication I was on, Concerta, is a stimulant. So my doctor was saying that it's a really, really rare occurrence when somebody is exhausted by ADHD medication because this medication is actually given to people for narcolepsy. And I was like, but something's happening. I haven't been this exhausted in a really long time. I realized too that my mood swings were kind of uncontrollable on the medication. I had a friend who was like, sometimes the symptoms like this are in the beginning and it gets better. Took the medication for about 3 months total. At the end of that third month, I was like, I can't do this. It's not actually helping me to do the things I want to do because I'm sleeping most of the day. And so I decided to go off of the medication and start a supplement routine. I'm not, by the way, giving you medical advice. I'm just saying I needed to find what worked for me. And at that same time where I was thinking about coming off of the medication, I had been given the advice that I should start listening to my own energy in my body and stop fighting myself. What that had meant for me was at those times where I was pushing through the exhaustion to make sure I would get things done, it was actually making me more exhausted. I went off of the medication, I started the supplement regimen, and I started also really listening to my body and the energy. Meaning, do I have the energy to create something right now, or do I need a nap? And for about 2 weeks after I came off of the medication, the answer was nap a lot of the time. Allowing myself to actually rest, allowing myself to actually be awake when I needed to wake up, because that was another thing too. My psychiatrist had suggested because I wake up between 5:30 and 6, no matter what time I go to bed, that I was probably sleep deprived. And that was what was actually happening with my exhaustion and not necessarily because of the medication. But I had literally been like this my entire life and I had never felt this exhausted before. Even when I had makeup jobs that would be 16 hours long and get barely any sleep and then need to be on set the next morning, I never had a problem back then. So with all due respect to my therapist, and I do really mean that, I'm grateful for the help that I got from her during the time that I was working with her. I was just like, thank you, but no thanks. There isn't the plethora of prescription medications for ADHD like there is in the United States here. Around mid-July, the supplements really started to work. My sleep schedule, listening to my energy really started to work. I got the urge to start creating content again in a real way. I really hadn't been creating content in a real or serious way since 2022 when I had shut my business down. So I started on YouTube watching content creators. I started watching Alexa Saranoia. I started watching Silver and Solo. I started just watching creators that are in my age range, right? Like elder millennial, Gen X, and even older. It has been the most inspired I have felt watching content creators build their personal brands ever, because there are so many creators in their early and mid 20s that make absolute perfect sense and teach beautiful strategy on how to grow your brand really fast on YouTube or other social media platforms. And guess what? It's really intimidating. I'm admitting it. I am intimidated by some of the huge creators and the platforms they've built. It doesn't really make me feel like, oh, I can do it too. A lot of the creators in their 20s that I follow who teach about content creation and personal brand building, they don't seem to have ADHD. I'm not here to diagnose people or not diagnose people, but there are a lot of them that are like, oh, I follow this content calendar and I am this organized with my B-roll. And I'm like, I wish I could be you. I wish I could be that organized with my B-roll, with my content calendar, with my scheduler. But I have to be honest with myself. I've never had success with a content calendar. I can't plan that far ahead. What I mean by that is that as soon as I put like a month of content down on a content calendar and it come up to the day that I'm supposed to be creating a piece of content, I'm usually bored or not interested in that topic that I thought I would want to be talking about, then I'd have to replan anyway. It was part of my time wasting that I would do when I was just prepping myself to make content. You know what I mean? Like buying all of the gear and all of these different softwares to get myself into the mindset that I'm going to be creating content online and have myself well organized and well scheduled so that it fits into my lifestyle. Like the thought about all of it was overwhelming. I was spending more time planning and overthinking than I was actually creating content. It wasn't only the ADHD that was affecting my content creation and personal brand journey. It was everyone's advice that wasn't actually working for me. And it's not bad advice at all. It just wasn't for me. Shout out to Alexa Saranoia, by the way. She was the one who kind of gave me permission via the content that she created online to do it differently. I didn't need to have a really complex and complicated system on my back end. And not having that complex or complicated system didn't mean that I wasn't going to be successful creating content or building my personal brand in my 40s. My thought was that, oh, the content creators who are successful, who are big, who've been able to grow their channels are people who have experience in organization and scheduling and creating content calendars and are doing all these steps, taking the right steps to be successful content creators and stay organized. And I'm not saying that you should not be organized or at least attempt to organize it yourself in a way that makes sense. But what I am saying is that I realized through this journey of figuring out what would work for me with my ADHD, I found that I needed a strategy that was my very own, a strategy that would work for what I want to do and not just in the short term. So having a goal that wasn't just like, I want 100,000 followers by the end of the year. It needed to be a different goal. It needed to be around habit formation and what I was capable of if I was paying attention to my energy and not just trying to follow a step-by-step process that worked for somebody else and then going back and beating myself down when I wasn't able to follow that process. Alexa had told me the way that she actually organizes her day around content creation is really just, she knows she's going to post 3 videos a week and she comes up with the topic, she scripts, films, and edits on the same day. And I was blown away because I'd never heard of somebody growing at the rate that she was growing and doing it in a way where it was just not perfectly organized. I can really get into that trap of perfectionism. And the perfectionism sometimes leads to procrastination and overthinking, and I'll do it tomorrow and I never do it. So if this is you, what I'm trying to say is that whether you have ADHD or not, the strategy that's actually going to work for you is not someone else's step-by-step system that worked for them. It's you learning to listen to your own energy. It's you learning from people who inspire instead of intimidate you. It's you figuring out how you can make it so easy that it's hard to skip a day, or it's hard to not do the task that you had promised yourself you were going to do, right? Something that I'm noticing is that my personal growth journey runs in parallel with this ability to create content consistently and post consistently as well. I had been in therapy for the last year and a half. I had been taking Spanish classes for the last year and a half too. And those are two things in my life that I've been able to stay consistent with. And I realized that the goal cannot be just external. The goal needs to come from within you. It needed to come from within me. I needed to want to learn how to be consistent with my content creation. I needed to know that I wanted to learn how to edit better and create more engaging videos and actually teach something that's valuable to people and grow a community. That's what's actually important to me right now in this era of my content creation and personal branding journey. Knowing where my priorities were, I could create a strategy that actually works for me instead of gaslighting myself when trying to follow some strategy that worked for somebody who is not neurodivergent, who is 20 years younger than me, and who has a team to help them build the content. Right now, as a small YouTuber, I'm doing everything myself. I am coming up with the concepts, making all the thumbnails, making all of the scripts, lighting myself, filming myself, I'm editing myself. All of it's done by me right now. And to be honest, I'm enjoying it. I did not think I was going to enjoy this as much as I have been enjoying it. One part of the enjoyment is the ease of using this camera that I use. I'm using the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. I'm not trying to sell it to you. I'm just saying, like, this is literally the easiest camera that I have ever used to create longer form or shorter form videos. I also really love my editing software. I've never been enthusiastic or even thought editing would be fun, but I'm using Descript and it's really, really simple for me to use, even though there's a little bit of glitchiness when I'm like uploading and downloading my videos. But whatever makes it easy, right? Whatever makes it fun, whatever makes it interesting, and whatever allows you to not just be obsessed with the perfectionism, with the overthinking around the steps that you need to take to go on that journey that you've decided to go on. Do those things. That's the strategy for you, not this. First, you got to make a content calendar. Then you got to decide which days you're going to create and then which days you're going to edit and then which days. That does not work for me. It might work for you. And if it does, great. Follow that process. All I'm saying is that as somebody who has ADHD diagnosed later in life, it created a sense of freedom for me to actually figure out what my process was, what strategy would work for me, how I could work with my own energy, and how I could actually achieve goals because I did find a system that worked for me. So if you're a creator in your 40s and beyond, and you are wanting to build your personal brand here on YouTube or on any social media platform, I am here to really be a resource for you. I want to help you with everything from on-camera skills to how to create content posted online and all of that stuff. But I'm also here for the mental wellness part of it because I'm not here to burn out again. I'm not here to force something to happen that the energy is not behind. I'm here to make it work for myself later in life. And I want it to work for you later in life too, if that's your goal. So if that sounds good to you, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.